everyone, and thank you for joining me at JBeanz912 Presents, where we have the honor today to speak with Latoya Peterson. Latoya lives at the intersection of emerging technology and culture. She is a co-founder and CXO at Glow Up Games, a game studio centering storytelling around Black and Brown joy. Glow Up Games recently launched their first title set in the world of HBO's Insecure and is working on a second experience in partnership with the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. Latoya, how are you today?
I am great. I am in San Francisco for the Game Developers Conference. It is a little chaotic behind me, as you can see, but hopefully you guys can see me okay.
Awesome. It's a beautiful scene, by the way.
Yes, it's a lot going on at the moment, but happy to be here. It's at least sunny today, so I'm like, all right, I'll take it.
So could you please elaborate on what perked your interest in getting into the gaming industry as a Black woman?
Absolutely. So I actually didn't think that I wanted to get into the games industry. I've just been a player for a really long time. Started gaming when I was 6, just fell in love from there, played all the way through high school, part of the way through college, and just always was fascinated by the ways in which game worlds take you in a way that other types of media don't. And so, meanwhile, my career was kind of what I call James adjacent. I was a writer and a producer and a commentator for a long time. Then I went into running newsrooms and running a media organizations. I worked for Al Jazeera, I worked for a network called Fusion, and then I worked for ESPN and Business. And I just had a great career there, but I always just loved games. And so in 2018, my good friend, Dr. Latoya Baker, who was in the games industry for 13 or 14 years at that point, and had done different things, was like, hey, we should start a studio that's, just our own. And Dr. Ken Baker is, a South Asian woman.
Okay.
But we were just two brown girls in gaming. That's how we connected in the first place. And we just didn't see any stories that looked like us or characters that looked like us as protagonists.
Right.
We're like, okay, let's try to make something happen. And while we were chatting about that, we got this random call out of the blue from HBO that was like, oh, hey, we're looking for a studio to pitch a game for Insecure. Would you guys be interested in pitching? And that just kind of started our journey as a studio. And here we are 4 years later.
Having learned some of sound design for gaming when I got my audio production, I know how intricate each piece of the production and workflow is to producing a great game as the final product. Where do you see gaming going in the future as far as for minorities and specifically gender-based, in the sense of where we are now at this crossroads of gender norms and old thoughts on what should be and new progressive movements on what can be?
Yeah, what I always found interesting. So when we started the Insecure game, we were like, oh, we've got this amazing title based on this amazing show with this amazing creator. And it just did not occur to us that when we would go and pitch it into the games industry, we were facing a lot of white men who would say, who's Issa Rae? And they had just never heard of her or the concept. Like, they just had no idea who we were, what we were doing, with no cultural concept at all. So that was really challenging to get around. And then, the realities of game development are also very challenging. Like, African Americans, or any given survey, or sorry, Blacks, I didn't say African Americans, we're talking globally. Blacks are normally 2 to 4% of survey respondents any given year, or less than that in the industry. To the point where Blacks in Gaming, where we're winning an award this week, Blacks in Gaming has an initiative called 5 in 5, where they want us to be 5% of the game industry in 5 years. Like, this is where we're starting from. And when you contrast that with the reality that 99% of young Black kids are players and that they love games, you just find a really interesting side pocket. What creating the Insecure game led us to understand, and we had to start doing, we had no data to go on or benchmark from. Everything was, we had to create from scratch. And as we kept looking at, like, okay, what would costs be? What do our players like? One of the big things we learned about gender in gaming is that women are more likely not to call themselves gamers, especially Black women.
Right.
Even if they're playing games every day, even if they're playing on their phone, even if they're, deep into Fortnite, they will just never say, if you ask them, hey, do you play video games? They're like, no, not really, no. And you have to have the conversation. And when you have the conversation, then it's like, oh, I don't really play, but I really got, I really got into Uncharted because, I saw somebody else play it and I fell in love with it. Or, somebody else is like, I don't play anything except me and my friends have this Discord channel called the Valkyries, and we play Game of Thrones Conquest, and it's been they're describing very deep play practices, so much so that we're like, women are associated with casual gaming, but we realize that our player is kind of mid-core, like she is deep into it, but she doesn't think about what she does as gaming. And that's a really big hurdle to overcome, because for so long we've been told that gamers look like one type of person, that people who are playing, who are spending hundreds of dollars a year, who are keeping up with the latest things, who are really interested in the space, don't see themselves as players. So that for us is a lot of the work that we think we have to do, just because it's like, if you start talking to a woman, she'll tell you 15 different games she's playing, but the first thing they normally say is, I'm not a gamer. And so getting that to shift is one of the biggest things, I think, in terms of changing the industry and moving it forward.
Definitely. Are there any initiatives that they're going to be implementing this year at Big to encourage more minority, specifically Black female minorities, to kind of immerse in the gaming industry as they're doing with the STEM programs across the country?
That's really interesting. So the founders of Big can probably speak to like what they're doing for the 5 and 5, because I'm not sure who they're in partnership with on that one. And then there's organizations like Game Impact, which Game Heads. So he does this great, like, it's almost like a college prep camp, I think, out of Oakland. And they do a lot of wonderful, just like prep for careers in the games industry. They do like narrative design summits, QA summits, and those type of commentaries. But unfortunately, it's just too few and far between. I was on a panel earlier this week where we made the argument for a Black game studies curriculum to understand like all the contributions that have happened that are not recorded. So, there's a few of us at any given time, but over time, that's added up to a lot of people whose stories we just don't know. But to have like a Black game studies curriculum and to be integrating all these different ideas, cross-disciplinary way, so that folks are invited and they don't feel like they have to like come and assimilate into the games industry to be able to create the things that they want to create.
I am so just ecstatic, mainly because I had an opportunity to go to the Revolt Summit this past summer.
Nice. Okay.
And they had a collaboration with Microsoft. So I got to go and see a lot of the things they had on the gaming end. And it made me begin to think about, well, why am I not using that huge chunk of education that I got in audio? Because they require we learn sound design for video games. So it's like, there's a whole niche there that is like emerging, and we're starting to see that we have value in those spaces. What would you like to see going forward as far as just independent gamers and creators stepping out on their own and creating a lane for, rogue independents like myself?
No, fantastic. And I mean, that's a great start to talk about like sound design, right? So when I hire for the studio, one of the hardest things is finding like of-color talent that knows sound design, and not just the composition side, but also how it integrates into a game. So normally we can always find someone to compose something for us, right? People always do music for games. But in terms of the implementation and understanding systems like Wise, that's where there's a big gap. And so I normally get a lot of entries from basically like all white male teams being like, we can do your sound design end to end. And we would prefer to work with people of color, but a lot of folks don't have that second piece. They have the first piece a lot in terms of making beats and compositions and amazing things. Exactly. And then that second piece of how does it integrate into the game is big. We see the same problem with like technical designers. Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of folks who are really good at making beautiful characters and are doing amazing levels. And we need folks to add on an additional layer to that, either by learning 3D, so like, Maya or Blender and like the types of shading, working in-game engines like Unity to understand what they're going to ask for and how like lighting and rigging works. Mm-hmm. I just met somebody and it was, they have a thing called Black Rigs. And I was like, Black Rigs? Like, really? Yeah, rigging, talk to me, because rigging is such a big part of making a 3D game work, and almost nobody does it. It's very difficult to find people who have that expertise, and especially not for, again, if you're trying to do diverse body types. Right. So, I mean, we had the Insecure game, and we had to create a lot of stuff from scratch, which again, just thinking about how, anything that happens with Black folks tend to do, we tend to be underfunded. Mm-hmm. We tend to be trying to do more with less. And to have to create all these things from scratch, whereas we were carrying white characters, there would be a whole bunch of assets for us just to pull and download. Yeah. It's different. And then body types, right? So, I mean, like Kelly is one of the most popular characters on Insecure. Natasha Rothwell is a comedic genius. But Kelly is plus size. And when we look at the assets that were available to us to adjust, like they make plus size people look like dump trucks.
Right. There's no,
and that was,
they have no finesse, so to speak.
No finesse. Like that cultural idea is not there in a lot of ways. Whereas for us, like, being curvy and plus size is fine. And like
that's what's popular.
The amount of consideration. Yeah. And the amount of considerations, like the amount of stuff I just never thought about before in terms of like, we wanted our guys to be able to have beards. But they were like, well, how big is the beard? Because this bar is going to start
But it's
focusing on
always just that little
like
devil's peak or the little.
Because if the little goatee doesn't mess with anything else in your there's just so many things. And like, if there was a little bit more of a base of knowledge culturally, that would make it a lot easier. I mean, like when you look at those beautiful photorealistic, hairstyles and tattoos and art in Madden. Remember, Madden's like a $200 million game each year.
Right. I had this conversation just the other day with my sister about, if we had a game that highlighted our stars the way that we champion the Madden games, wouldn't it elevate just success to our community and other minority communities to be able to see themselves highlighted as the main characters, not just the extra
100%.
players?
Yeah, and I mean, like there was a study. I mean, it's old now, just like everything. It starts to age really fast. Somebody doesn't keep updating it. Right. But there was a study that came out that was like, if you take out the black sports characters and black criminal characters, you're less than 1% of all black game characters that are there. There are very few that are protagonists in their own right or even playable. And I mean, like 10 years ago, back when I started blogging forums in the games industry, we partnered. My blog was called Racialicious, and we partnered with a blog called Microscopic. And we were just like, how many playable black characters are there when we really think about it? And I think between crowdsourcing, people weighing in the comments, we're all fighting. There's a lot of ambiguous characters. Are we counting aliens that are brown skin as black?
We can always be aliens,
Yeah, we can always be aliens. Are we counting, they were like Jade from Beyond Good and Evil. She's mixed. Are we counting her? Alex from Half-Life. She's black and Korean. Okay, we'll count her. Like or black and Asian. We'll count her. But like there's all of these questions around like what even count? But I think we came up at the time with 85 playable black characters in games. Many of which were fighting games characters.
Right.
So like that was understanding like the difference between playable and like a lead in the game and like what sells and what doesn't. All of those are also deeper conversations that we need to get into.
You can go on and on.
But there's so much more. Yeah, I mean, there's thousands of things, but there's so much that we can start to try to make a difference on. And I think a big part of that is that us as black players show up and are seen and we talk about what we're buying and we're not ashamed to say this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm playing, and this is what I love. And then making sure that we support when there are smaller black studios. So like we're doing it, but so is our sister studio, Brass Lion Entertainment. They're working on the game right now, coming out for Microsoft platforms. So I think Xbox and Game Pass. Sean Alexander Allen runs New Challenger. He makes beat 'em up games. He's on the Nintendo Switch. Ariel Knight, who I just saw on the escalator at GDC. Ariel Knight made a game called Never Yield last year. It was like a black utopian runner. He's a solo dev, kind of did most of it himself. He was fantastic. So there's games that are about us, and it's just like trying to, it's so hard for us to exist in this space that a lot of times we can't talk about the awesome stuff we're doing. We can't promote it the way we want to because we're so busy just keeping the lights on.
Right.
But, I think it's a little more, I would love to see a little bit more unity around just supporting black creators. And some of this stuff has just never been invented because it wasn't a thought. Like I was like, has there been a specific gathering for black women in games? And all of my friends have been around 20 years, 15 years. They were like, no. There just used to not be as many of us to even do it. Exactly. So that's a big one that we're looking for in terms of the future and making sure that we just keep inviting more and more people in.
It has definitely been a pleasure talking with you today, Latoya. Can you please give us some ways to contact you and keep in touch and follow on all of these advances that you bring into the forefront for us?
Absolutely. So on Instagram, we're at Glow Up Games. You want to talk to me personally at Latoya Peterson on Twitter, as long as Twitter is going to last. But I'm really good at responding to folks that I know there. On Instagram, at Latoya P, but I tend not to add people I don't know. And then you can always follow glowup.games on our website to see like the new stuff that we're building.
I'm definitely going to follow that because this is
right. Oh, and download the game on the App Store. The game is live now on both App Store, Google Play, and iPhone. Just search Insecure. We will pop up Insecure the Come Up game.
I will definitely be downloading. Thank you. It's been a pleasure,
you.
Latoya.
Absolutely.
Thank you. It's been my honor to talk to you. I hope we speak again soon. And you've actually perked my interest into, exploring some more possibilities and some of the skills I've just been downplaying recently.
You 100% sure. Like there is space literally in every aspect of gaming. It's just you got to bring yourself and then like add another layer, but should be good to go.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much for seeing us and supporting us. We appreciate it.
Thank you again. You'll be able to check us out on redfintv.com, channel 27. You have a great day, okay?
You too. Take care.